Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan Battle video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at the spirited new generation Super Saiyan Gohan Teen, Super Saiyan Trunks Kid, and Super Saiyan Goten Kid, and how good they are in DBZ Dokkan Battle at 100% in the Hidden Potential system. So we're lucky enough to have a friend that has them at 100%. They lead Hybrid Saiyans, Youth or Defenders of Justice category, Ki +3, HP 200%, Attack and Defense 170%. They also have an additional 50% for characters who belong to the Sibling Bond of Parent and Child, or the Bond of Friendship categories. Their super attack effect while in Gohan's form, which we'll cover first. And I want to talk about these units kind of almost like separate units. I know it sounds really weird, but the thing is that these characters honestly are almost like two different units. Gohan feels like a character that was constructed for a Hybrid Saiyans, Kamehameha team, whereas, Goten and Trunks are very much more a character that exists to function on a, Hybrid Saiyans youth driven team. So very heavily youth, very heavily Hybrid Saiyans. So I think I'd like to talk about them separately. So talking about Gohan first, he's an attack and defense 200% up, launches an additional super attack, which is great, receives an additional Ki +3 per rainbow Ki sphere obtained, which is also great. When receiving an attack, he gets defense of 250%, and a lot of people always underestimate this. I always find this the thing that they underestimate the most. He receives an additional he gets damage reduction of 40% for the first turn, or allies attack and defense of 30% for the first turn. When there's another Hybrid Saiyans or Bond of Parent and Child category ally, gets Ki +7 and 250% when attacking. Gives all allies 30% attack and defense, as well as 15% crit chance. He will get, with one or more rainbow Ki spheres obtained, defense of 200%, damage reduction of 38%, launch an additional super attack, attack of 200% when attacking, with 12 or more int Ki spheres, or 5 or more rainbow Ki spheres. He will get defense of 250%, and damage reduction rate of 20%, or allies attack and defense of 58% for 2 turns. It's very important to take note that it is highly unlikely that Gohan is going to regularly get 12 or more int Ki spheres, or 5 or more rainbow Ki spheres. It's not something he's going to get outside of his active turn skill, but he is a character that primarily deals with being, a good second start unit, and is more for short-term fights. When another 2 or more Hybrid Saiyans category allies are on the team starting from the third turn, he can turn into Super Saiyan Trunks and Goten. Then his active skill will massively raise his attack, cause ultimate damage to the enemy, give all attacks critical hits, and change Ki spheres into int and rainbow. This is important because it's going to help him, because you will see that it gives him the option to activate his full passive. This can be activated when there are 2 or more Hybrid Saiyans on the team starting from the third turn, or starting from the 5th turn. This is one of the reasons why I say the characters are fundamentally two different characters. Gohan's requirements don't actually require him to be on a team that features units that benefit Goten and Trunks. They do obviously benefit similar teams, but they're not absolutely mandatory. Gohan is kind of like a good all-rounder. He provides a little bit of support, he's a solid second slot unit, he's easy to build, and he has great utility because he only needs attack and evasion. And in terms of utility and everything, he looks pretty solid. He can do decent damage with building up his crit, but one of the biggest things with him is that he really struggles in terms of functionality, because the thing is that he doesn't have a specific role or purpose. And I think that's the thing that holds him back the most. He genuinely feels like he does not have a role or purpose. He's not really a first slot unit. He doesn't deal insane damage for a second slot unit, and you probably don't want to put him on the third slot because he's not bad enough at either of the other two that warrants kind of pushing him away. So it's one of those weird ones where it's okay, this is a unit that's good, very obviously, but he's very good in very specific situations. Short-term fights, boosting the rest of his team, giving good linkage to some other units is great, but he also doesn't really do enough to revive some of the other units. He doesn't do enough to revive strength Kamehameha Goten. He kind of does his own thing from that aspect. So it is very interesting with how he functions. Personally, for me, I find it very interesting. Other than that, I think he's a pretty good unit. Like, I do really find him solid. Yes, he's a bit mixed bag. He's a bit different in terms of execution and everything, but I do find him enjoyable to use. I think he functions very, very well. I think he does a good job. He's just the kind of unit that I think ultimately, when you think about him, he can be a little bit tricky to use. He does have a great leader skill, and ultimately that is a super important part of the unit. And he links up well with certain characters that definitely needed a new linking partner. But because he's not an outright first slot tank, at least not in the traditional sense, it is difficult to some extent say, like, oh, he's definitely great for strength Kamehameha Gohan. He's great for him in a lot of events, but then there are certain events where he will get injured. He will not be able to first slot tank. So it is a bit mixed bag, but I do think overall, at least for me, I do think Gohan is a good unit that can serve a lot of good roles on the team. And I think that ultimately comes down to how he works and how he functions. But there's a whole other side to this unit. There's the Goten and Trunks side. I think that in itself is an incredibly interesting unit as well. And I think both of them are not necessarily mutually exclusive. So let's talk about Goten and Trunks, because Goten and Trunks are very, very good as well. Obviously they have the same lead, but link set and passive do limit them a little bit more, but ultimately make them function pretty insane as well. Goten and Trunks raise attack and defense for 4 turns on their super. On their 18 key, they will raise attack for 1 turn, cause mega class damage, raise allies attack by 50% for 1 turn, and have a great chance of raising their defense by 50% for 1 turn as well. Their link set changes a lot because they gain links like the Innocents, Budding Warrior, Prodigies, Saiyan Lineage, etc, etc. And obviously their passive changes quite substantially. They get key plus 5, defense of 100%, medium chance of crit, great chance of launching an additional super, and 2 key per type key sphere obtained. When a key sphere is obtained, their chance of evading the enemy attack goes up by 77%. So immediately with a 77% evasion, they are what I would classify as an evasive tank. Yes, they're not functionally a tank in the traditional damage reduction guard type of sense, but if you can evade the boss, chances are they're going to do it for you. 2 or more type key spheres will give them attack of 100% up, as well as defense of 100% up as well, super duper crucial. And then, of course, 4 or more type key spheres obtained will launch an additional super and guard all attacks, which makes them, as you can imagine, even tankier. Per youth category ally, and this is where I talk about how they are functionally very different to Gohan, they get 200% attack. So it's almost mandatory, if you want to get the best out of them, that you prioritize youth characters outside of hybrid Saiyans characters, which is very interesting. But the hybrid Saiyans characters will also give them defense of 100% up to 500%. So it's interesting, because essentially what that means is, as a character, you are at a point where you are saying, okay, we need to have Goten and Trunks on a team with youth characters, and we need to have them on a team with hybrid Saiyans characters. Maximizing both of this changes them quite substantially. When receiving a super attack, they'll get their chance of evasion going up by 15% temporarily, so they have a 92% chance to dodge supers. They give all allies key plus 3 and attack and defense of 30% within the turn, and youth category allies get an evasion chance up of 5% for 2 turns as well. So basically, to cut a long story short, they are fantastic. Personally, I think they're awesome. I think they are incredibly, incredibly good. I think they are very, very good as units. I think what they do is very impressive. They provide support. They are incredibly solid. They are great evasion tanks. They do huge damage, as you're seeing here. Their big thing is they are way more specific for that damage than Gohan. Gohan is the type of character who, will bust out 30 to 40 to 50 million attacks, that's depending on dupes and everything, which is great. These guys are the kind of guys who will do 120 million, provided the team is obviously all youth. If your team is not youth, if you're using like a hybrid Saiyans team that isn't youth or youth orientated, their damage drops off a cliff. That's just how they are. Also, obviously, if the boss disables evasion, then unfortunately you're in for a tough time. That's just something you can't really do anything about. If you don't have evasion active, they fall off a cliff, and you're gonna probably just stick with using Gohan, because there's no reason to use them at all, basically. So it is very interesting. I think functionally they are great. Their active skill is also pretty cool. Giving a 20% flat buff to youth, again emphasizing the point that they are more a youth category character than anything else. But I think overall it's a very, very cool unit. Like I said, Goten and Trunks are designed for a team that heavily emphasizes Goten and Trunks characters, whereas Gohan is more generic Kamehameha, Goku's family, hybrid Saiyans, bond of parent and child kind of unit. And that's okay. I think having two units in one is actually way more interesting than just having the kind of same thing we've had already. Having a super evasive ultra mega tank for like a Goten Trunks kid kind of orientated team is amazing when you consider that Gohan is your more utility kind of bond of parent and child hybrid Saiyans unit. And I think them having two different purposes means that you might lean towards one side more than the other, and I think that's okay as well. So for me overall, I think they're very cool, and I was actually very impressed